Hello. Um, I am going to say this right now that the first time I tried recording this, my computer crashed. My computer has crashed maybe about 20 times this last week. It seems like it might be on its deathbed. If it's done this before and then just stops doing it, the problem I have with this computer is it seems like once it crashes once, it's really likely to do it again. And I was hoping this wouldn't really be a problem since I've been at work the last few days and I haven't been on the computer at all. It's really only giving me problems on Wednesday, I think. Maybe it was Tuesday. I'm sure it was Wednesday. And we're still having the problem. So this might crash again. I might not even come out with this video, but if this video is coming out, then I guess it probably didn't crash, at least not while I was recording. So um, I have little hope. But anyways, it is Liam's Leapings, my weekly update, number 129 for the 18th of May, 2025. I finished 4 books this week. I did also write most of a short story. We'll see if I can finish that this week. But it's been a minute. I also have a short story coming out today. It's my first time I've had a short story come out in a while. I think I made a video for my very first publication I ever had a few years ago. And then I made a story for my last publication, which was at the very end of 2023. I didn't have anything accepted for publication in 2024 at all. I did have my novella come out, so that kind of made up for that. But this was written in 2025, accepted just in April, and is going to come out today when this video comes out. So that is a goal I wanted to achieve this year, was to have a short story come out. So happy about that. I'm not sure how I feel about the short story. I like refuse to go reread it, but I'll probably have a separate video actually coming out on Wednesday just talking about that again, because I don't know, I feel like I should mention stuff like that. But anyways, the books I read this week, I finished, let's see, I think the only one I have physically right here, let's see. Yeah, so I finished Tangled Webs by Elaine Cunningham, which is book 2 in Starlight and Shadows. It is about this drow lady right here. She's rather young. It is about her dealings with humans mostly, but also drow. And this was really fun, actually. I enjoyed it a lot. You get a lot less Underdark stuff going on in this one than you do the first one. It is definitely a sequel to the first one, but kind of a mostly separate adventure. The first one really stands alone if you want it to. First one is Daughter of the Drow, which I read just a few months ago. This one does have a third book as well, this is not the original cover. The original cover has a really skimpily, scantily clad drow woman who's the main character, Muriel, and casting magic against or facing off against a mind flayer. If you look close enough, though, actually, you can tell the mind flayer has breasts. It's interesting. This mind flayer in this book actually identifies as a woman, even though mind flayers are really genderless. It's kind of interesting. I've never seen that before. But anyways, it's interesting. But this book is pretty good. Elaine Cunningham is really good at doing her stuff. She makes the drow way better, way better than Salvatore ever does. That's not surprising. Salvatore is not a very good writer. Elaine Cunningham is a very good writer, in my opinion. So enjoyed it. The third book came out much later, which is why this is when the third book came out, was 6 years later, I think. So that's why they redid the covers for the first two, and the third one matches this redone set. That's what's his face. What is this? What's his name? I'm forgetting it right now. Todd Lockwood. Yeah, that's right. That's the guy. Okay. So enjoyed it. And then I finished Arrows of the Queen by Mercedes Lackey. This is pretty much a YA novel written for girls. It's fantasy. It wasn't bad. I enjoyed it, actually. Nico, I think, just read books 2 and 3, though, and it sounds like those were disappointing compared to book 1. So it was really short. It wasn't really a big time commitment by any means. So I don't know if I'll read more. All of Mercedes Lackey I've read so far, which I will admit is actually very little, is only this and another book, have kind of seemed targeted to younger girls. Maybe this one's maybe a bit more YA than the last one I read, which was probably more for teenagers, strictly speaking, rather than younger teenagers, I guess, if that makes sense. So, anyways, so it was fine. I also read Moonbound by Robin Sloan, I believe is the name. which is kind of a far future Arthurian thing. It's like 11,000 years in the future, I believe. And this one also is kind of a book written for younger audiences, I would say. I think it works. It would probably work for younger audiences. I think it works pretty well. It's an enjoyable novel. It wasn't great, but it wasn't terrible by any means. I enjoyed it a lot. Actually, a very little complaint about there. It's interesting with like the main characters are really like an artificial intelligence, but follows this young boy named Ariel. Um, and very early on, this artificial intelligence, who's been asleep for a long time, realizes there's some things going on. So it's like he knows the Arthurian myth, and so it's not like just some random Arthurian myth and no one knows about it. Like the AI literally was like, "Wait a second, I recognize this." It's so in a sense, it's a book about books in some ways as well. It's kind of like really mixes the future with our future with like the ancient past pretty well, right? Like you get this like very ancient sense of magic and whatnot, but also then you have like espresso machines, right? So like yeah, it's blending all a couple things there, but it works pretty well. And then I also read The City and the Stars by Arthur C. Clarke, only my second book I read by Clarke. Um, and I enjoyed it. It's a Dying Earth book, so that's great. I enjoyed it more than Childhood's Inn, which I read a few years ago, reviewed it on the channel, um, probably about 3 years ago now. But um, yeah, I mean, I enjoyed it. It was interesting, kind of where it starts and where it goes. Not much to say besides it's Dying Earth, and it's mostly focused on one city, and they think they're the last city, like on Earth. It kind of vaguely sounds like The Nightland by William Hope Hodgson, which I haven't read, which I know that's more about the dreams and stuff like that. This one's less weird, but like it does have some interesting science fiction elements, but also has the kind of the vibes of some sense of Dying Earth as you'd expect. So I'll have more thoughts when I do a review on that. The other stuff I've been reading this week is I am maybe about halfway through this. Not quite halfway through Instrument of Fate. I'd like to get a lot more done with this week. I've been really busy and stretched between projects, but I did a bunch of translation this week, and I'm going to do more tonight after I'm done recording this. So, assuming my computer works, please. I also started reading Dragon Tales, which sounds really cartoony for some reason, but it's like in a magazine format, but it's really an anthology. And it feels much nicer and thicker than magazines like Dragon Magazine, for example. This came out in 1980. This is actually some of the first Dungeons and Dragons fiction at all. The first one was The Gnome Cache by Gary Gygax. It's not complete. Well, it was finished, but it was not all published for some reason. And then you have Quag Keep by Andre Norton, which I have read. I read it before I made this channel, though, so I don't have a review for it on the channel, but I have a post about it on my blog, actually. And so those are the first two things, and then you get 10 more stories in this, 1980. This is a year or two before they started doing their Endless Quest stuff, or whatever they were calling that stuff at the time, but something like that, right? Might have been Endless Quest, I'm not sure. And like 4 years before Dragonlance would come out, so pretty early. But I've only read the first two stories in here, and for example, these are their names: John L. Jenkins and Ruby S.W. Young. Guess what? You probably have never heard of them because, as far as I'm aware, these are their only publications. So they're must have been like amateur authors. I mean, the next one is actually a rather famous author. It is Gardner F. Fox. And then you have Carl Palagreco, I've never heard of. Tom Moldvay, which I have heard of, but not as an author. Of course, Roger Moore, David F. Nall, John Ray, Frank, I don't know. Martin Munt and Marie Desjardins. I don't know. So I haven't really heard of most of them. So we'll see how they go. The first two weren't bad. They're both very different. If and when I do finish all these, I'll probably make a more of one of my Wednesday type videos to talk about it rather than just a strict review. But anyways, what else have I been reading? I'm still not very far at all, and with Dealing with Dragons by J. Lee Johnson, the newest Forgotten Realms novel that comes out in July. I have an arc, so I'm not in like a big rush because I still have a little while. I think it comes out in late July too. But it has not hooked me by any means. I kind of complained about it last week on my weekly update, and while it's really not bad, it's just not great really at all. And um, excuse me, I think Johnson's a good writer, and there's a lot of mediocre Forgotten Realms or just Dungeons and Dragons novels in general, but this one is not being helped by the fact that the style is very different. It's very, very, very different than all the other Forgotten Realms novels. And that's because it's written for a different audience. And I wouldn't say it's for YA audience. I think it's for the influx of young gamers that now play Dungeons and Dragons, which is funny because I'm like the same age as these people, but I do not identify with them. But that they're just like kind of silly in a lot of ways. I don't know, pathetic almost. And So this book just seems a lot more gamey, like stuff that would kind of happen around the actual game table rather than an adventure in a fantasy world, which is what the other D&D stuff normally read like. So, um, which I'm not a big fan of, to be completely honest. I don't think that's a great way to adapt your IP there of Dungeons and Dragons. Um, so I don't think that's. I'm sure that's not J. Lee Johnson's choice. I'm sure that's someone in Wizards or Hasbro telling her to do stupid things. So, stupid people telling people to do their stupid things. So, anyways, um, yeah, I mean, I'm glad I got the book, and I'm gonna read it almost certainly before release. But it's just like I don't know. It's really not my style. Like I said, I don't really want to put it on Johnson. I'm sure it's really the publisher that's at fault here. It really doesn't blend well at all. It's not something that like old fans of. I mean, considering they published 300 things for the old fans, this I don't know. This just the style of it just doesn't work. I don't think it really doesn't. Maybe modern fantasy readers actually would enjoy it, but I don't. It feels way too artificial. It doesn't feel uh, really like a fantasy world at all, actually. But which is unfortunate. I mean, like, and it started in a dungeon, for example, that's only from Tales from the Yawning Portal. So it's not even really like a Forgotten Realms locale at all. It's just been shoehorned into the Forgotten Realms. So, which again shows Wizards of the Coast like extreme lack of care for lore in fifth edition, which is terrible. In some ways, it's almost worse in fourth edition because fourth edition they completely botched it up on purpose, and fifth edition is supposed to undo most of that, but they really just ignore things. Fifth edition is just a big steaming pile of ignoring everything actually, and so and then adding in the stuff they don't ignore, then they're going to add in like Greyhawk stuff for no reason, right? And like when they make the magic cards for Forgotten Realms, who's the big mage they have? It's not Elminster, it's Mordenkainen. That doesn't even make any sense. Like what? Mordenkainen's not from Forgotten Realms, and they did do Elminster in the second set, but really that these are the people that run the scene, and they're dumb. I'm just going to put it that way. They are dumb. They are butchering something that I feel like they shouldn't own at this point. I feel like they should sell off Forgotten Realms. Holy crap. They are terrible stewards right now. Anyways, I kind of talk about that in my State of the Realms address that I do at the beginning of the year. But another rant because Wizards of the Coast is just so embarrassing. Um, ugh, most people don't seem to care about the lore, but I think they treat it terribly. They do such a bad job. It's egregious and it's impressive how bad they handle it. Like I said, you would think fourth edition would have been worse, but somehow fifth edition, in some sense, is worse. So, anyways, I also am very, 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 very close to finishing Rhymer Hell, which I hate that title, but Hell is what I would just call it by Gregory Frost. Book 3 in the Rhymer trilogy is really good. It's not amazing, I guess. I have a really hard time of just blanket recommending things. I try to just be somewhat neutral. I mean, give my feelings and opinions on it, but I'm not gonna, most of the time I review something, even if I really liked it, I'm not gonna be like, you should read this, right? Like most other booktubers, I feel like, at least that's my experience. And so I don't know. I think most people who would watch me though would enjoy it actually, unless you're like against sexual content. Gregory Foss, he does a really good job though, mixing like sci-fi, fantasy, historical stuff, horror elements, more so in the first book for that. But um, yeah, it's really good. I'm enjoying it, but I'm really close to finishing it. I'm not sure how it's going to end. I think it's going to end pretty abruptly, to be honest. This one takes place in Elizabethan times, so it has Shakespeare makes a super, super short cameo, but Christopher Marlowe's in there a little bit more. John Dee makes a cameo, stuff like that. So, anyways, I also am Oh, yes, I'm barely into The Drawn in the Dark by Tim Powers. I'm not that far into it at all, but you can kind of tell it's one of his earlier works, but it still has a lot of elements from the later books I read by him, which I haven't read very many, but two besides this. So enjoying it. I heard it has Arthurian elements, but I have not seen that yet, so that's interesting. We'll see when that comes in. Um, and then I'm also really close to finishing The Lords of the Wind by C.J. Adrian. I gave a presentation in March for a, I don't know what you call it, a colloquium, symposium, a lecture series. Halfords Hall. About every month, there's a lecture hosted by my buddy Sean. I gave one in March. The two people who gave them before me, and even the guy that gave them after me, are much more prestigious than I am. But the first person who gave one was Terry Barnes, who is one of the hosts of Vikinology, a podcast on Vikings, obviously. The other host of that is CJ Adrian, though, who, while he is kind of a scholar, as far as I'm aware, he's got like a master's degree in this stuff. I don't know, maybe he doesn't do research as much. I don't know exactly, but he writes novels. That's his thing. So indie books, and this one's fine. It follows Hastings, who is a historical figure, and I'm enjoying it. So that's something. And then I am well. That's all right. My class books. So I have been reading the Prose Edda and the Poetic Edda. I have a little bit more left to read, I think, in the Poetic Edda, but pretty much done with the Prose Edda at this time. I'm gonna read Saga of the Volsungs here soon, which I'm already familiar with. I haven't read Volsunga Saga, but I'm gonna read that here this next week. The one book I got this week was Shadow of the Seventh Moon by Nancy Varian Berberek. Yeah. Who I think is really known for her Dragonland stuff, but I saw this wasn't tied to any IP, and I was like, oh, that's interesting. This doesn't sound bad, right? It's about a dwarf, I guess. But it also, if I remember correctly, where did I see that? It was in acknowledgments. It takes place, I think, in the 7th century England, which is pretty cool. Let's see. Okay, so he tells his tale in 690. The story takes place in 630 to 631. One of the key players is Pinda, King of Mercia, who is a pretty cool historical figure. If you don't know who that is, look it up. So that's cool. I think this sounds fun and interesting. We'll see. I've never heard anyone talk about this at all. I just found out about it on the internet, so I ordered a copy. But very cheap, and it came in great shape, as you know. I like. Anyway, so I don't know when I'll read this. I was kind of just feeling it, kind of like with this stuff. Christy Golden mostly writes like IP franchise fiction as well, but this one is one of her own rare books that's just her own world. Anyways, I've been talking too long now, but hope y'all are good. Computer hasn't crashed here yet. I shouldn't jinx it, I guess.